What's the most striking aspect of today's economy to you? What do people need to know?
There are two statistics that everybody should have in mind. One is that there are 20 million people who have incomes below half the poverty line. That's amazing, below $9,000 for a family of three. And that includes 6 million people whose only income is from food stamps, which is an income at a third of the poverty line. And the other thing is that we have so many people, 103 million people with incomes below twice the poverty line. Those are people who, they're not technically poor, but they have low-wage jobs. They really don't know how to they're going to pay their next bills and make everything come out even for them. And we're just not paying attention to how many low-wage jobs that we have.
You often have come up against the argument, I'm sure, that, well, this just shows that poverty alleviation programs didn't work. Did poverty alleviation programs just not work?
Poverty alleviation programs work. Ronald Reagan said we fought a war against poverty and poverty won. That is absolutely not true. The policies that we have, the food stamp program, the earned income tax credit, Social Security, these things are keeping 40 million people out of poverty who would otherwise be poor. We already have 46 million people who are poor, but 40 million people more would be. They work. The problem is there are too many low-wage jobs. There are too many people, moms with kids who are by themselves in this world, who can't make it on one job in the household. That's the problem.
When did things change?
Things changed, started to change in a very fundamental way in 1973, the year of the first oil shock. There was up until that time, the manufacturing jobs had started to disappear, but somehow it all came together in 1973. So you had economic trends that ever since World War II had been upward, including for African American men who've had such a tough time in the last 4 decades. So that's when the trouble started, when we started seeing the flood of low-wage jobs, which really took over the economy for the whole bottom half. And so now the median wage job, half the jobs in the country pay less than $34,000. A quarter of the jobs pay less than the poverty line for a family of four, about $22,000. And the wage has been absolutely flat over the course of almost 40 years from 1973 till now. The wage of the minimum wage job, of the median wage job, went up by only 7%. It's disproportionately a problem for people of color, but the largest number of people who are poor in this country are white. And we need to keep two stories in our mind. Number one, anything that we do that raises incomes of people at the bottom will help more white people than it will people of color. And number two, it's shameful that there's so disproportionate an amount of poverty among people of color, that we have these issues of race and gender in this case means largely women of color. We are still really not dealing fully with these questions of race.
What role does personal responsibility play in all this?
It does play a role. We all have to take responsibility for ourselves. That goes without saying. So that when right-wingers come along and say it's all somebody's fault, wait a minute. There are serious structural problems in the way our economy works, in the way schools work, in the way the criminal justice system works. But it's also true to blame it all on structural problems isn't correct. And so we've come to a point where just because there's been sort of so much damage in some communities and neighborhoods, that we have to make an extra effort to really get to kids and say, you've got to take responsibility for yourself and take these opportunities that are out there for you. And don't listen to people on the street who tell you it isn't worth it. So at the end of the day, nobody makes it who doesn't take responsibility for themselves. But to say, oh, it's all on the individual, that's just wrong.
How important is having options to doing the right thing, as it were?
It's critically important to see a way to succeed, to see a way that there is opportunity. What's going on now for literally millions of young people in this country, disproportionately of color, is that they don't see that, so they start truaning, they drop out of school, and school's no bargain for them anyway. It's not really conveying anything. They don't have enough people in their lives who send them a message that they can make it if they stick to it. And so we really have a kind of, in some neighborhoods and areas, we really have a generation to generation transmittal of poverty. So we've got to cut into that. We have to stop that. Welfare reform was a bumper sticker, is a bumper sticker. It said, go and get a job. It didn't say, we're going to provide you supports. It didn't even assume that a job, it did assume that a job was available when very often it wasn't. So it was really based on just ordering people to behave in a different way. The fact is that most people want to work. Most people want to have a chance to make enough money so they can support their children and lead a decent life. And the way our economy is arranged, for too many people, that's just basically doesn't work. And particularly, we have so many people who get into trouble temporarily, and we have this program now called Temporary Assistance to Needy Families, and people go to the welfare office, and it's not even temporarily available. We now have about 4 million people who are receiving TANF, and it was 14 million before that law was enacted in 1996. And so there's state after state in this country where you just can't get cash assistance. In Wyoming, 4% of poor kids receive cash assistance. It's kind of astonishing.
Is this a temporary blip in our economy, the low wage, low employment situation? I'm
afraid that low wage work is here to stay in large amounts. I can't predict the future many, many decades from now, but this is a global economy. We are not situated well vis-a-vis these emerging economies in China and India. And as a consequence, manufacturing is weak. To the extent that manufacturing is coming back now, the wages are coming back at a much lower number than they were when the jobs went away 3-4 years ago. And so we really need to face up to the fact that there's so much low-wage work, and we need to take action. We need to raise the minimum wage. We need to get the kind of work supports in terms of health care. I hope we can hold on to that, and child care and housing. And I think we're going to need to talk about how do we add to wages beyond the earned income tax credit so that people can get a decent income, an income that they can live on.
There are people who will say guaranteed minimum incomes is a function of socialist Europe. It's just not the American way.
People who say that providing support for wages or a decent safety net for somebody who's out of a job is somewhere, in some ways, adopting some sort of a European answer. If you run an economy in which people doing their very best can't make enough money to live on, we should help. I don't know what label I would give that except that it is economic justice.
Is it un-American, though? I mean, what's the American tradition when it comes to helping our brothers and sisters?
The American tradition is kind of ambivalent about helping other people who are in need. Our history is, up until the New Deal, is largely one of private charity and a limited amount of state help. We started to take a different view in the New Deal, and we've done much better since then. So I think we're kind of ambivalent about helping. There certainly are people in this country who take the position that anybody who has a problem, it's their own fault. Clearly there are. On the other hand, we've enacted all of these great programs and policies from Social Security through Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, earned income tax credit, many, many more. Those were voted on by people who were elected by the American people. So I think we are responsive, but I think that we have to continue to tell the truth about why people have problems, about what the issues are, and so much of it is really beyond anything that they did wrong.
How much difference did the popular movements of the 1960s make to your ability in that era to develop some of the programs you've talked about? How important were the movements?
The 1960s certainly were an unusual decade in our country, as were the 30s for different reasons, because with Franklin Roosevelt and the Great Depression, the country was ready to respond. In the 1960s, the Civil Rights Movement made a huge difference. To put it simply, there was a kind of a national realization that just because you had a right to eat at the lunch counter didn't mean that you had the money to be able to buy the meal. And so President Johnson felt this strongly, deeply, that we ought to attack poverty. We can have whatever views we do about the war in Vietnam. I think of them as almost two different people. But in terms of civil rights and poverty, he was a great president. Now, maybe more importantly, but at least equally important, the civil rights movement did get people supportive. It did open people's eyes, and so I think there was a popular sense that if people were hungry, we needed to get food to them, and so we did a pretty good job. And through the Nixon period as well, he signed into law housing vouchers and SSI, supplemental security insurance, which helps the elderly and disabled, and Pell Grants, a whole long list of things. Things started to change with Reagan, and we've been kind of fighting an up and down battle since Reagan came along.
How would you assess the state of our movements today?
I was very excited about Occupy. I thought that we were finally getting some people who were getting off their behinds and going and calling us all out. And there was a tremendous national response to that. The word inequality was in the media in exponential ways compared to where it had been before. So I think that shows you that if people will come together and keep at it, and if there's a kind of an institutional partnership with the unions like the SEIU and faith groups and so on, that perhaps we can sustain a movement. There has to be a coming together of people. Maybe if things don't improve in the economy and there's really a continuing and increased sense that people at the top just have too much, maybe that will change the politics. Right now, the politics are not helpful, to say the least.
What's happened to the word poverty? Where is it? Barack Obama didn't even use it in his State of the Union last year.
I really don't like this exclusive emphasis on the middle class. Not that I'm against the help for people wherever they're hurting, but we should be talking about inclusion. We should be talking about everybody who's in need. Now, Barack Obama has done a lot about poverty. 16 million people added to Medicaid in the Affordable Care Act. Race to the top, you can have some policy differences, but it's about education for low-income children. Well over $150 billion in the Recovery Act, the stimulus legislation for poor people, low-income people. So the record is there. It's good, but I think we've got to get the P word back into the conversation.
What's at stake?
I think what's at stake really is our future in very fundamental ways. I don't see how a democracy can function and remain a democracy in all the meanings of that word if there are millions of people who are not included, who are not full participants. I think it corrodes the moral basis of the country. It perpetuates the power of wealthy and special interests, corporate interests, in ways that are just corrosive. So I think what's at stake is a lot.